training course. Port Facility Security Officer. Prepared and conducted by Maritime Bureau of Africa, MBA. For certification and tuition inquiries, please contact MBA by email, director@mbaclass.co.za, or phone +277 2567 0010. Chapter 4. The Port Facility Security Assessment and Plan. 4.1. Practical Security Assessment of Port Facility. Security assessments, including on-scene surveys, are essentially physical examinations of facilities, operations, systems, and procedures, to determine the existing state of a facility environment's security. PFSA is defined as an analysis that examines and evaluates the infrastructure and operations of the facility, taking into account possible threats, vulnerabilities, consequences, and existing protective measures, procedures and operations. In the port security environment, the FSA is a written document, developed pursuant to the assembly of background information, an on-scene survey, and analysis of that information. The FSA should address several primary components, which include port assets and infrastructure, threats, countermeasures and procedures, and vulnerabilities. Port Facility Security Assessment. Security assessments, including on-scene surveys, are essentially physical examinations of facilities, operations, systems, and procedures to determine the existing state of a target environment's security. PFSA is specifically described as an analysis that examines and evaluates the infrastructure and operations of the facility, taking into account possible threats, vulnerabilities, consequences, and existing protective measures, procedures and operations. Background information. The general layout of the facility, including the location of each active and inactive access point to the facility, number, reliability, and security duties of facility personnel, security doors, barriers, and lighting, location of restricted areas, emergency and standby equipment available to maintain essential services, maintenance equipment, cargo spaces, storage areas, and unaccompanied baggage storage, location of escape and evacuation routes and assembly stations, and existing security and safety equipment for the protection of personnel and visitors. Response procedures for fire or other emergency conditions. Procedures for monitoring facility and vessel personnel, vendors, repair technicians, and dock workers. Existing contracts with private security companies and existing agreements with local or municipal agencies. Procedures for controlling keys and other access prevention systems. Procedures for cargo and vessel stores operations. Response capability to security incidents. Threat assessments, including the purpose and methodology of the assessments, for the port, in which the facility is located or at which passengers embark or disembark. Previous reports on security needs. Any other existing security procedures and systems, equipment, communications, and facility personnel. On-scene survey. The survey is an examination and evaluation of existing facility protective measures, procedures, and operations to verify or collect required background information. Analysis and recommendations. The port FSO must analyze the background information and the on-scene survey and provide recommendations to establish and prioritize the security measures that should be included in the port FSP. The analysis must consider each vulnerability found during the on-scene survey, including the following: waterside and shoreside access to the facility and vessel berthing at the facility. Structural integrity of the piers, facilities, and associated structures. Existing security measures and procedures, including identification systems. Existing security measures and procedures relating to services and utilities. Measures to protect radio and telecommunication equipment, including computer systems and networks. Adjacent areas that may be exploited during or before an attack. Areas that may, if damaged or used for illicit observation, pose a risk to people, property, or operations within the facility. Existing agreements with private security companies, providing waterside and shoreside security services. Any conflicting policies between safety and security measures and procedures. Any conflicting facility operations and security duty assignments. Any enforcement and personnel constraints. Any deficiencies identified during daily operations or training and drills. Any deficiencies identified following security incidents or alerts, a report of security concerns, the exercise of control measures, or audits. The analysis must also consider possible security threats, including the following: damage to or destruction of the facility or of a vessel moored at the facility. Hijacking or seizure of a vessel moored at the facility or of persons on board. Tampering with cargo, essential equipment or systems, or stores of a vessel moored at the facility. Unauthorized access or use including the presence of stowaways. Smuggling dangerous substances and devices to the facility. Use of a vessel moored at the facility to carry those intending to cause a security incident and their equipment. Use of a vessel moored at the facility as a weapon or as a means to cause damage or destruction. Impact on the facility and its operations due to a blockage of entrances, locks, and approaches. Use of the facility as a transfer point for nuclear, biological, radiological, explosive, or chemical weapons. The analysis must also consider the following: threat assessments by government agencies. Vulnerabilities, including human factors, in the facility's infrastructure, policies, and procedures. Any particular aspects of the facility, including the vessels using the facility, which make it likely to be the target of an attack. Likely consequences in terms of loss of life, damage to property, and economic disruption, including disruption to transportation systems, of an attack on or at the facility. Locations where access restrictions or prohibitions will be applied for each MARSEC level. Port Facility Security Assessment Report. A completed, written PFSA report must be submitted and included with the PFSP each time the PFSP is submitted to the National Security Agency for reapproval or revisions. The following is a list of the elements required in the written PFSA report for port facilities. A summary of how the on-scene survey was conducted, method of survey. A description of existing security measures, including inspection, control and monitoring equipment, personnel identification documents and communication, alarm, lighting, access control, and similar systems. A description of each vulnerability found during the on-scene survey. A description of security measures that could be used to address each vulnerability. A list of the key facility operations that are important to protect. A list of identified weaknesses, including human factors, in the infrastructure, policies, and procedures of the facility. A description of the following elements within the facility: physical security, structural integrity, personnel protection systems, procedural policies, radio and telecommunication systems, including computer systems and networks, relevant transportation infrastructure, and utilities. A list of the persons, activities, services, and operations that are important to protect, in each of the following categories: facility personnel, passengers, visitors, vendors, repair technicians, vessel personnel, and so on. Capacity to maintain emergency response, cargo, particularly dangerous goods and hazardous substances, delivery of vessel stores, any facility security communication and surveillance systems, and any other facility security systems. And accounting for any vulnerabilities in the following areas: conflicts between safety and security measures, conflicts between duties and security assignments, the impact of watchkeeping duties and risk of fatigue on facility personnel alertness and performance, security training deficiencies, and security equipment and systems, including communication systems. A discussion and evaluation of key facility measures and operations, including ensuring performance of all security duties, controlling access to the facility, through the use of identification systems or otherwise, controlling the embarkation of vessel personnel and other persons and their effects, including personal effects and baggage whether accompanied or unaccompanied, procedures for the handling of cargo and the delivery of vessel stores, monitoring restricted areas to ensure that only authorized persons have access, monitoring the facility and areas adjacent to the pier, and the ready availability of security communications, information, and equipment. 4.2. Contents of the Port Facility Security Plan, PFSP. PFSP includes the following individual sections. Section 1. Security Administration and Organization of the Facility. Section 2. Personnel Training. Section 3. Drills and Exercises. Section 4. Records and Documentation. Section 5. Response to change in MARSEC level. Section 6. Procedures for interfacing with vessels. Section 7. Declaration of Security. Section 8. Communications. Section 9. Security Systems and Equipment Maintenance. Section 10. Security Measures for Access Control. Section 11. Security Measures for Restricted Access. Section 12. Security Measures for Handling Cargo. Section 13. Security Measures for Delivery of Vessel Stores and Bunkers. Section 14. Security Measures for Monitoring. Section 15. Security Incident Procedures. Section 16. Audits and Security Plan Amendments. Section 17. PFSA Report. Section 18. Vulnerability and Security Measures Summary. 4.3. Development and implementation of the PFSP. A port facility is required to plan and effect security at the levels identified in the risk assessment process, and as established by the governmental entities with statutory responsibilities for port security oversight. Security measures and procedures should be developed and applied in such a way as to cause a minimum of inconvenience for, or delay to, passengers, ships, goods, and services. Ports operate within a complex intermodal transport system, and weak linkages between components equate to higher vulnerability. Port security is impacted by the actions of many organizations. If intelligence sharing is inadequate, port security may not be well informed about the threats it faces. As the term security means different things to different people in different environments, it is important for those responsible for port security planning to work constructively within the organization to develop a port FSP on which all stakeholders have buy-in and concurrence. Prior to the implementation of the globe-spanning International Ship and Port Facility Security (ISPS) code, recognized standards for port facility security did not have a defined scope. For the purposes of creating a security plan at a port facility, a working understanding of security should consist of measures aimed at neutralizing vulnerabilities for criminal activity within the port, identifying and responding to safety issues, minimizing the threat of terrorism, reducing opportunities for internal criminal conspiracies, disrupting links between corruption, terrorism, and organized crime, sharing intelligence and investigative information with appropriate law enforcement agencies, promoting opportunities for the exchange of best practices in port security. The impetus for this framework has been the considerable public policy and industry response to enhance port facility security across diverse sectors of the maritime domain. Developing a layered approach to security means using a variety of tools that, when combined, provide a strong defense against terrorism, crime, and other identified risks. The concept of a force multiplier is useful for port security managers in planning a layered approach to security. Force multipliers are added organizational devices or capabilities that improve the chances of mission success. In and of themselves, diverse security activities, such as a security guard checking identification credentials or a waterside craft patrolling the navigational channels of a port, may not be effective mitigation strategies for particular security risks. But when the manager plans activities in concert with one another, as a strategy in managing specific risks, these seemingly diverse activities may significantly increase the threat reduction potential of the strategy, and enhance the safety and security of the environment. Port security is, therefore, enhanced through the development of multiple security systems and processes. A layered approach to security refers to the implementation of a variety of security tools to build an interconnected security program. 4.4 Approval of the Port Facility Security Plan. 4.5 Restricted Areas, Cargo, Freight, Stores and Baggage Controls. Control Rooms for Security Equipment, CCTV, Computer Servers, Remote Alarms Controls, Power Control Rooms, Cargo, Freight, Stores and Baggage Controls. Security measures will tighten depending on announced security level. Port management must define and identify the restricted access areas of the port facility, so that all persons are aware of areas where only those with proper authorization are permitted access. Restricted areas should include, but are not limited to, the following: cargo storage or staging areas. These include cargo container yards, cargo warehouses or sheds, and areas where cargo is prepped or staged for transit. The objective is to impede persons' abilities to tamper with or compromise the security of cargo to deter theft, smuggling, and improper or illegal import, export of goods. Docks, berths, and wharves, only those persons with a need to be there, should be allowed access to work in areas adjacent to vessels. Major concerns relate to access to cargo, vessels, provisions, passenger luggage, the ability to smuggle contraband, and the introduction of improvised explosive and parasitic devices in support of terrorist activities. The security and protection of the interface areas between the port facility and the vessel is critical in maintaining the integrity of articles such as these. Fuel storage or transfer yards. Some seaports may have significant fuel storage and transfer facilities. Major fuel transfer seaports may be regional receiving facilities for certain basic products, for example, aviation fuel and gasoline. Only those persons with a need should be allowed access to fuel storage facilities to protect the facilities themselves and to deter terrorists and criminals from converting fuel into a weapon of mass destruction. Passenger cruise and ferry terminals. Terminals represent the interface between the port facility and the passenger carrying vessel. The restricted access area should be defined to ensure protection of the passengers and the vessel. Only passengers and authorized employees should be permitted access to passenger terminals. Port-restricted access areas should be clearly marked, posted, and delineated to identify them as locations requiring special authorization to enter. Signage and other visual media should provide clear and accurate warnings and information. Maintenance and modification of the plan. After audit and management review as part of quality management system, provisions for modifications must be included in the plan. 4.6. Security equipment and systems and operational limitations. Important security provisions, such as closed-circuit television, access control systems, secure buffer zones, and alarm monitoring capabilities. AIs. Vessel Security Alert System. Locks. Lighting. Handheld radios. GMDSS equipment. Closed-circuit televisions. Automatic intrusion detection device, burglar alarm, metal detectors, explosive detectors, baggage screening equipment, container X-ray devices, general alarm, emergency lights, stationary X-ray scanners, stationary drugs and explosive scanners, handheld metal detectors, radiological material detectors, gas detectors, plastic explosive/bomb sniffing equipment, blast blankets, individual security equipment, handheld radio, flashlight, torch, whistle, pepper spray, bullhorn, if required, firearms, if temporarily brought into the facility during elevated security levels, handcuffs, plastic cuffs, band-type restraints for wrists and ankles, batons and other riot control equipment. Limitations: insufficient training of the involved personnel, lack of understanding of the security requirements by other port personnel. Techniques used by perpetrators to bypass security measures. Disguise, false identity documents, false cargo documents, false cargo seals, shield from thermal detection and motion detection devices, blinding of infrared cameras, GSM and radio jamming, bribe, infiltration of organized criminals into security system personnel, lockpicking, forced entry, intentional break of cargo packaging, distraction by fire or explosion, Blackout to disable electronics. Short circuit of electric fences. Vertical placement of weapons in luggage at a full X-ray. Cover less dense materials with more dense. Display file recognizing responding to threats.pdf. End of chapter 4 audio file.